Have you ever trusted someone so deeply that you were willing to hand them your heart, only to find that they stabbed you in the back instead? Betrayal is not just about deception, it is the crumbling of a world you once believed in. It can come from a lover, a friend, a colleague, or even family. But the real question is not, why did they betray you? But rather, how will you respond? Not every betrayal deserves forgiveness. Some wounds are not meant to heal, but to remind you never to return. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Meditations. Today I will reveal the 10 betrayals that should never be forgiven. If you have experienced any of these, perhaps it is time to make the most crucial decision of your life. Forgive or walk away. Stay until the end, because the last betrayal might change how you view forgiveness forever. 1. Repeated lying, when trust becomes impossible to rebuild. Trust is the foundation of every meaningful relationship, whether in love, friendship, or business. It is the invisible thread that binds two souls together. But what happens when that thread is repeatedly severed by dishonesty? Imagine you have a business partner, someone you built a venture with from the ground up. You share ideas, strategies, and financial responsibilities, believing that you both have the same vision. Then, one day, you discover that your partner has been making secret deals behind your back, pocketing profits that were meant to be shared. At first, they apologize, swearing it was a one-time mistake. You hesitate, but decide to move forward. Then, it happens again, and again. How many lies does it take before you realize that deception is not an accident, but a pattern? A conversation might unfold like this. "I trusted you. We were supposed to build this together. It was just one bad decision. I didn't mean to hurt you." 1. This is the third time. "How am I supposed to believe you anymore?" They lower their gaze, unable to respond. In that silence, you hear the truth louder than any excuse. Seneca once wrote, "A liar should have a good memory." On benefits. A person who lies must remember every falsehood they've spoken, but trust, once broken, can never truly be restored to its original form. Some betrayals happen like a thunderclap, sudden and devastating. Others are insidious, creeping into your life like poison. A friend who repeatedly deceives you, a colleague who manipulates the truth to serve their interests, or a family member who distorts reality to control you. These betrayals erode your peace, one lie at a time. If someone lies to you once, it could be a mistake. Twice, perhaps an oversight. But when it becomes a pattern, it is a choice. And your response must not be blind forgiveness, but self-respect. Have you ever found yourself trapped in the cycle of trusting someone who repeatedly broke their promises? The Stoics teach us that we cannot control the actions of others, only our response to them. If someone chooses to deceive, that is their nature. But if you continue to allow it, the pain that follows is no longer their fault. It is yours. Forgiving a single lie can be an act of wisdom, but excusing habitual dishonesty is an act of self-betrayal. Reflect on your relationships. Is there someone who has continuously broken your trust? If so, what would happen if you finally let go? Share your thoughts below. Have you ever given too many chances to someone who didn't deserve them? 2. Physical or emotional abuse, when love becomes a prison. Love should be a sanctuary, a place where you feel safe, valued, and uplifted. It should not be a battlefield where you constantly have to defend your worth, nor should it be a cage that traps you in cycles of fear and self-doubt. Yet, too often, people find themselves entangled in relationships where love is weaponized, used to control, manipulate, and break them instead of building them up. Imagine a man named Ethan. At first, his relationship with his partner seemed perfect. She was kind, attentive, and always seemed to know what to say to make him feel special. But slowly, things began to change. It started with small criticisms, remarks about how he dressed, the way he spoke, the people he spent time with. Then came the insults disguised as jokes, the constant undermining of his confidence. By the time the first slap landed, Ethan had already been conditioned to believe that it was his fault, that if he just tried harder, loved more, or became better, things would go back to the way they once were. But they never did. They never do. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Meditations. Abuse, whether physical or emotional, is a clear sign that the person inflicting it does not see you as an equal, but as something to be controlled. True love does not seek to diminish you. It does not strip away your dignity, nor does it make you feel small. Love should elevate, not destroy. One of the most insidious aspects of abuse is how it warps reality. The victim often clings to the good moments, hoping that the person they fell in love with will return. But as Seneca once said, a harm repeated is no longer a mistake, but a choice. When someone repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, disregards your feelings, or physically harms you, it is not because they lost control. It is because they made a decision to do so. If you are in a relationship where your value is constantly questioned, where fear is a daily companion, know this: you do not need permission to leave. You do not owe anyone endless patience at the cost of your own well-being. The Stoics teach us that suffering should be endured only when it serves a purpose, but enduring abuse is not a test of strength. It is a surrender of your own dignity. Reflect on your relationships. Have you ever justified someone's harmful behavior because you love them? If so, ask yourself this: if a friend came to you with the same story, what advice would you give them? Would you tell them to stay and suffer, or would you tell them to walk away? Be that friend to yourself. Choose freedom over control, clarity over confusion, and respect over regret. And if you need help, seek it. You are worth more than the pain you are enduring. Comment below if you have ever experienced or witnessed a toxic relationship. Your story might help someone else find the strength to leave. 3. Public humiliation, when respect is shattered in front of others. Respect is the silent foundation of every healthy relationship. It is not declared with grand gestures, but demonstrated in the small, everyday ways we treat those we care about. However, when someone who should be your greatest supporter instead becomes the one who publicly degrades you, the foundation of your bond begins to crack. Public humiliation is not just an act of disrespect. It is an outright betrayal of trust, one that leaves scars far deeper than any physical wound. Imagine Olivia, a successful professional, deeply in love with her partner, Mark. He was charming in private, always whispering words of admiration and devotion. But in social settings, it was a different story. At gatherings with friends, he would make demeaning jokes about her intelligence. In professional settings, he would undercut her achievements with dismissive remarks. The laughter of others stung more than the words themselves. But what hurt most was the fact that the person she trusted the most was the one delivering the blows. Each comment chipped away at her self-worth, making her question whether she was overreacting, whether she was being too sensitive. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Meditations. It is tempting to strike back, to humiliate in return. But the Stoics teach that our dignity is not dictated by others' behavior, but by our own actions. When someone chooses to belittle you in front of others, they are not revealing your weakness. They are exposing their own insecurity. A secure person lifts their loved ones up. A weak person tears them down to feel superior. Public humiliation is a form of control. It is a subtle way of asserting dominance, of keeping you in a position of inferiority. It trains you to accept mistreatment, to become conditioned to laughter at your expense. And worse, over time, you begin to internalize it. You start shrinking in social settings, hesitating before speaking, doubting your own worth. A relationship, whether romantic, familial, or professional, should be a place where you feel valued, not ridiculed. Seneca once said, "He who does not prevent a crime, when he can, encourages it." Letters to Lucilius. When you allow someone to continually humiliate you, even passively, you send a message that it is acceptable, but it is not. You deserve relationships built on mutual respect. You deserve to be surrounded by people who protect your dignity, not strip it away for their own amusement. If someone has made you feel small in public, if they have turned you into the subject of a joke, ask yourself this: would they tolerate the same treatment if the roles were reversed? If the answer is no, then why should you? Reflection is key. Have you ever laughed along with your own humiliation just to keep the peace? Have you justified someone's public cruelty as just their personality or just a joke? The Stoics remind us that we alone set the standard for how we are treated. Walk away from those who make you question your worth. Stand firm in your dignity. And remember, the world will only treat you as well as you demand to be treated. Share your experiences below. Have you ever faced public humiliation from someone you trusted? 4. Repeated infidelity, when betrayal becomes a choice. Loyalty is not a demand, but a decision, a mutual agreement built on respect and trust. Infidelity, when it occurs once, may be a moment of weakness, a lapse in judgment. But when it happens repeatedly, it is no longer a mistake. It is a conscious decision to betray. A betrayal that shatters not just trust, but the very foundation of love itself. Consider Daniel, a man who once believed in unconditional love. His partner, Anna, made a mistake. She confessed to an affair, claimed it was a moment of confusion, and promised it would never happen again. He forgave her, but months later, the truth surfaced. Another affair, another secret, another betrayal. Each time the apology felt emptier, the promises weaker. He wanted to believe that love could overcome anything, but eventually he realized the harsh truth. When someone cheats on you repeatedly, they are not just betraying you, they are making a statement about your worth in their life. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Meditations. When someone chooses deception over honesty again and again, they are not just making mistakes, they are shaping their very character. Infidelity is not just about the act itself, it is about the lies, the deception, the erosion of trust that follows. A person who truly values you will never make you question their loyalty. They will never treat your forgiveness as a free pass to betray again. The Stoics teach us that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can control our response to them. If someone shows you through their actions that they do not value commitment, it is not your job to convince them otherwise. It is your responsibility to protect your peace, to walk away, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." On the shortness of life. How much of your time has been wasted waiting for someone to change, for someone to realize your worth? How much longer will you allow someone else's choices to dictate your happiness? Think about your own experiences. Have you ever stayed in a relationship where betrayal became a cycle? Have you convinced yourself that this time will be different, only to find yourself back in the same pain. The Stoics remind us that the past is a lesson, not a prison. You do not have to stay in a situation that keeps breaking you. You do not owe endless patience to someone who does not respect you. If someone has repeatedly broken your trust, if they have shown you through their actions that they do not value commitment, ask yourself, are you staying out of love or out of fear of letting go? Walking away is not a sign of weakness. It is a declaration that you will no longer settle for less than what you deserve. Share your thoughts below. Have you ever struggled to walk away from a betrayal you knew you shouldn't forgive? 5. Gaslighting. When someone makes you doubt your own reality. Betrayal does not always come in the form of an obvious lie or an exposed affair. Sometimes it is far more insidious, like a slow drip of poison altering your perception of reality before you even realize it. Gaslighting is one of the most dangerous forms of betrayal because it attacks not just your trust in another person, but your trust in yourself. It is a manipulation so subtle yet so devastating that by the time you see it, you are already tangled in its web. Imagine Sarah, a confident and independent woman who slowly found herself questioning everything she once believed. It started small. Her partner, Jake, would deny things she remembered clearly. "I never said that," he would insist, or "You're imagining things again." At first she brushed it off, believing she was misremembering. But over time the pattern grew stronger. Every doubt she expressed was met with dismissal. Every concern was flipped back onto her. "You're just being too sensitive. You always make things up." Slowly but surely, she stopped trusting her own memory. She hesitated before speaking up, unsure if her thoughts were real or if they had been twisted by Jake's constant denials. Epictetus once said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." Discourses. Gaslighting thrives on this principle. It makes you complicit in your own manipulation. It makes you question your own instincts, replacing confidence with doubt and clarity with confusion. A gaslighter does not need to tell blatant lies. They only need to make you question the truth enough times until you start doubting yourself. Gaslighting is not just emotional manipulation, it is control. When someone makes you feel like you are always overreacting, always at fault, always confused, they strip away your autonomy. They make you dependent on their version of reality, and once that happens, they own your mind. But the truth is this: you are not crazy. You are not imagining things. If something feels wrong, it probably is. The Stoics teach us to trust reason and clarity above all else. When someone constantly makes you feel unsure, that is a red flag you cannot ignore. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Letters to Lucilius. But when you are caught in the trap of gaslighting, your imagination becomes your greatest enemy because it has been distorted by someone else's control. Have you ever found yourself questioning your own experiences because someone else convinced you that you were wrong? Have you been made to feel guilty for things that were never your fault? The first step to breaking free from gaslighting is recognizing it. The second step is trusting yourself again. You deserve to live in clarity, not confusion. Share your experience. Have you ever realized too late that someone was gaslighting you? 6. Controlling behavior. When love becomes a prison. Gaslighting is a cruel manipulation that distorts your reality. But what happens when control is not about words, but about actions that slowly strip away your freedom? Controlling behavior is one of the most toxic forms of betrayal, as it disguises itself as love and care while systematically breaking down your independence. What starts as concern soon turns into restrictions, isolation, and domination over your choices. until you no longer recognize the person you used to be. Imagine Alex, an ambitious and free-spirited individual who was drawn to Jordan's confidence and attentiveness. At first, Jordan's protectiveness felt comforting, insisting on knowing where Alex was at all times, offering advice on which friends were trustworthy, making subtle suggestions about how Alex should dress and behave. But soon, the concern turned into demands. "Why didn't you answer my call immediately? I don't like you hanging out with those people. If you really loved me, you'd listen to me." Before long, Alex realized that every decision, from career moves to social interactions, was being dictated by Jordan. The worst part, it no longer felt like control, it felt like obligation. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Discourses. True love does not require submission. It does not demand obedience under the guise of protection. When someone controls you, they are not loving you. They are using you as an extension of their own insecurity. A healthy relationship should encourage growth, not restrict it. It should empower, not diminish. Control can take many forms. It may appear as financial dependence, where one partner limits the other's access to money to keep them trapped. It may show up as emotional manipulation, where guilt and fear replace respect and trust. It can even manifest as subtle threats disguised as affection. But make no mistake, control is never about love. It is about power. And any relationship built on power imbalance is destined for destruction. Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." Letters to Lucilius. Walking away from a controlling relationship is not an act of weakness. It is an act of immense courage. It is choosing yourself over submission, clarity over confusion, and freedom over fear. If you feel suffocated in your relationship, ask yourself, are my choices my own, or am I being conditioned to follow someone else's script? If love demands the loss of your identity, then it is not love, it is control. Think about the relationships in your life. Have you ever justified someone's controlling behavior as just their way of caring? Have you ignored red flags because it felt easier than confronting the truth? The Stoics remind us that our power lies in our ability to choose, and the greatest choice you can make is to reclaim your freedom. Share your thoughts. Have you ever realized too late that control had replaced love? 7. Lack of accountability. When someone refuses to take responsibility. Control can strip away your independence, but what happens when someone refuses to take responsibility for their own actions? A relationship cannot thrive without accountability. A person who constantly blames others, avoids consequences, and refuses to acknowledge their mistakes is not just harming themselves. They are eroding the very trust and stability that a relationship depends on. Without accountability, respect fades, resentment builds, and the connection between two people weakens until there is nothing left. Picture Nathan, a dedicated and hard-working man who always took responsibility for his actions. His partner, Olivia, however, had a habit of deflecting blame. If she forgot an important event, she blamed her busy schedule. If she hurt Nathan with her words, she would claim he was being too sensitive. When they argued, it was never her fault. She would twist the narrative to make Nathan feel guilty, as if he were the problem. Over time, Nathan started to doubt himself, constantly apologizing even when he had done nothing wrong. He became trapped in a cycle where Olivia's actions never had consequences, while he carried the weight of every problem. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Meditations. A truly mature person does not waste time justifying their mistakes or shifting blame. They take responsibility and grow from them. A partner who refuses to do this is not just avoiding accountability, they are denying the very foundation of mutual respect. Without accountability, a relationship becomes an unbalanced equation, one person always giving, the other always excusing. Lack of accountability is a betrayal of trust. When someone refuses to take ownership of their actions, they are showing you that they value their ego more than they value the relationship. It is easy to say, "I'm sorry," but it takes true strength to admit fault and change. The Stoics teach us that growth comes not from avoiding our mistakes, but from facing them. If someone repeatedly refuses to be accountable, ask yourself, am I in a partnership or am I carrying the weight of this relationship alone? Have you ever been in a relationship, romantic, platonic, or professional, where the other person never took responsibility for their actions? Have you found yourself apologizing for things that were never your fault? The Stoics remind us that self-respect means drawing a line. If someone consistently refuses to own their actions, it may be time to walk away. Share your thoughts. Have you ever been caught in the exhausting cycle of dealing with someone who refused to be accountable? 8. Betrayal of loyalty, when someone values opportunity over trust. A lack of accountability weakens trust, but what happens when someone outright betrays your loyalty for personal gain? Some betrayals are not just about broken promises or unacknowledged mistakes. They are deliberate choices to put ambition, power, or self-interest above integrity. This is the kind of betrayal that leaves a lasting scar because it is not born out of carelessness, but calculation. Imagine Daniel, a talented and hard-working entrepreneur who co-founded a business with his best friend, Carter. For years, they built their company from the ground up, navigating setbacks together and celebrating small victories. But as the company grew, so did Carter's greed. He began making deals behind Daniel's back, securing higher stakes for himself while leaving Daniel in the dark. One day, Daniel discovered that Carter had signed an exclusive contract with investors, cutting him out entirely. Carter's justification: "It was just business, you should understand." But betrayal in the name of ambition is still betrayal, and Daniel was left not just with a broken company, but with a broken trust that could never be repaired. Epictetus once said, "We should not believe the men who tell us that we are the reason they had to do wrong." Discourses. Betrayal of loyalty is often excused with justifications. "I had no choice. It wasn't personal. You wouldn't have done as well as me anyway." But the Stoics remind us that our actions define our character. A person who sacrifices integrity for personal gain has already shown you who they truly are. True loyalty is tested in moments of opportunity. Anyone can stand by your side when there is nothing to gain, but when faced with temptation, money, status, power, their true nature emerges. Betrayal of loyalty is not a mistake, it is a conscious choice, and it reveals something unchangeable about the person who commits it. Have you ever trusted someone only to be discarded the moment a better opportunity arose? Have you ever been used as a stepping stone for someone else's success? The Stoics teach us that while we cannot control others, we can choose to protect ourselves. If someone has betrayed your loyalty once, don't give them another chance to do it again. Share your experiences. Have you ever been blindsided by someone who valued their ambition more than your trust? 9. Broken promises, when words lose their meaning. Betrayal of loyalty can be devastating, but what about the betrayal of trust through broken promises? Some betrayals do not come as a single devastating blow, but rather as a slow erosion of faith. Words are powerful. They can inspire, build, and heal. But when words are spoken without action to uphold them, they become empty. Promises, when repeatedly broken, do not just disappoint. They create disillusionment and a deep sense of betrayal that lingers far longer than a single act of dishonesty. Imagine Laura, who spent years believing in the promises of her childhood friend, Emily. Emily swore she would always be there, at Laura's wedding, for the difficult moments, for the memories they were meant to share. But every time Laura needed her, Emily had an excuse. "I'll make it up to you. I didn't mean to forget. Something came up." It started with small things, missed dinners, unanswered messages, but over time Laura realized a painful truth. Emily's words had never been backed by real intention. They were just echoes of what Laura wanted to hear. Seneca once wrote, "A gift consists not in what is done or given, but in the intention of the giver." Letters to Lucilius. A promise is no different. It is not about the words themselves, but the integrity of the person making them. Someone who consistently fails to follow through is not just unreliable. They are demonstrating that your trust in them is misplaced. Broken promises are not merely about missed commitments. They erode self-worth and damage relationships on a fundamental level. When someone repeatedly lets you down, they are teaching you something, not about them, but about yourself. They are showing you whether you are willing to accept words without action, to lower your expectations, or to finally demand more from the people in your life. Picture this: a business partner who guarantees they will invest time and effort, yet never delivers. A friend who swears they have your back, but disappears the moment you need them. A lover who constantly says they will change, but falls back into the same patterns of neglect. How many times must someone break a promise before you stop believing them? Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Meditations. A person who repeatedly speaks without sincerity does not deserve your trust. The Stoics remind us that integrity is the measure of a person's character, and if someone consistently falls short, they are showing you exactly who they are. Have you ever believed in someone's words, only to be let down again and again? Have you ever held on to a promise, hoping it would be fulfilled, only to watch it dissolve into another excuse? The Stoics teach us to judge people by their actions, not their words. If someone's promises constantly fall short, ask yourself, how much longer will you wait for something that will never come? Reflection. Think of a time when you held on to someone's words, despite all evidence suggesting you shouldn't. How did it affect you? What did you learn? Share your experience. Have you ever realized too late that someone's words were just illusions? 10. Disrespecting boundaries. When someone ignores your limits. A person who breaks promises erodes trust. But what about the person who refuses to respect your boundaries? Boundaries are the invisible lines that define who we are, what we stand for, and what we will not tolerate. When someone disregards those boundaries, whether in personal relationships, friendships, or professional environments, they are telling you that your needs, your comfort, and your personal space do not matter to them. And that is a betrayal that should never be ignored. Imagine Sophie, a woman who always valued her personal space and emotional well-being. She had a friend, Jake, who constantly pressured her into situations she was uncomfortable with. "Come on, don't be so sensitive," he would say when she voiced discomfort. If she asked for time alone, he would guilt-trip her into spending time with him instead. If she set a clear boundary, he would find ways to push past it, always acting as if her limits were mere suggestions rather than firm decisions. Over time, Sophie realized something painful. Jake never respected her. He only respected what he could get from her. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Meditations. If you allow someone to repeatedly cross your boundaries, you start to believe that your limits are unimportant. But the truth is, your boundaries are not negotiable. A person who respects you will honor your limits, not challenge them. Disrespecting boundaries is a slow, creeping form of betrayal. It starts small, an ignored no, a dismissal of discomfort, a casual disregard for your preferences. But over time, it grows. The person testing your limits sees that they can get away with more. They begin to manipulate you into thinking that you are being unreasonable for even having boundaries in the first place. This is not love, nor friendship, nor respect. This is control disguised as care. Consider Adam, a professional who prided himself on his ability to balance work and personal life. His manager, however, had different plans. "I know it's after hours, but can you just take this quick call? We really need you to be available 24/7. You're such a team player. I know you'll do this." At first, Adam complied, wanting to be helpful, but soon he found himself constantly sacrificing his personal time, unable to say no without facing guilt or retaliation. His boundaries had been pushed so many times that they barely existed anymore. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Discourses. Boundaries are not just about saying no, they are about protecting your well-being, your peace, and your autonomy. When someone disrespects your limits, they are, in essence, demanding control over you. And no one has the right to dictate your life but you. Think about the relationships in your life. Have you ever had someone ignore your requests, guilt-trip you into doing things you didn't want to do, or make you feel as if your personal space was unimportant? The Stoics remind us that our peace is sacred, and anyone who disrespects it is showing you who they truly are. If someone has been ignoring your boundaries, ask yourself, are they truly a part of my life, or are they taking advantage of my kindness? The answer may be difficult, but the clarity you gain will set you free. Life is too short to waste on those who do not honor your trust, your peace, or your dignity. The Stoics teach us that we cannot control others, but we can control how we respond to them. Forgiving a mistake is wisdom, but tolerating repeated betrayal is self-betrayal. Today, you have been reminded of 10 betrayals that should never be excused. If you find yourself in a situation where someone is continuously harming your trust, your self-worth, or your well-being, the greatest act of courage is to walk away. Now, I challenge you, which of these betrayals have you experienced? How did you respond? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story may help someone else find their strength. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected. This channel is dedicated to bringing you the wisdom of Stoic philosophy, helping you build resilience, clarity, and inner peace in every aspect of your life. Click the notification bell so you never miss another powerful lesson. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Meditations. Now take that power, make your choices, and live with the dignity and strength you deserve. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and never forget your worth.